Jenson Button's journey to the top of the Formula One world was long and arduous. He didn't have the chance to win a race until his 113th start, but went on to win the World Championship and become one of the great Grand Prix drivers of the 21st century. Before we get into the highs and lows of Button's career, if you've not already subscribed, give us a click below, and if you like what you see, to give us a thumbs up. Some questioned if Button was ready for F1 fresh out of F3, but immediately he was right at home. He ran 6th on his debut in the Australian Grand Prix before retiring with an engine failure, then scored the first of his 1,235 F1 points next time out in Brazil. Despite scoring points 6 times, with a best finish of 4th in the German Grand Prix and starring qualifying performances at Spa and Suzuka, Button was replaced by Juan Pablo Montoya for 2001. Montoya was racing for Chip Ganassi Racing in Champ Car on loan from Williams, which had to recall him for 2001 or risk losing him for good. So it didn't come as a big surprise to Button to be told he was out. In August, his move to Benetton was announced. But 2001 was a disaster for Button, who was comprehensively outperformed by teammate Giancarlo Fisichella in a Benetton B201 he later described as a total dog. Button only outqualified Fisichella 4 times, beating him just once in races, admitting Fisichella was an expert at extracting the best from a difficult car. Button's second season at the team, now renamed Renault, alongside Jarno Trulli, was a vast improvement. He was only denied a first podium by a late suspension problem in Malaysia, but outperformed Trulli, only to be replaced by test driver Fernando Alonso for 2003. The shocked Button instead signed up for Honda-powered BAR. After a fractious start to his relationship with teammate Jacques Villeneuve, Button asserted himself as BAR's stronger performer in 2003, interrupted only by a massive accident in qualifying for the Monaco Grand Prix when he lost it on the bumps approaching the chicane, which forced him to miss a race. He was also denied a maiden podium finish again, this time by an engine failure while on course for 3rd at Indianapolis, but he scored consistently and much of the damage to his reputation done by that terrible 2001 season was wiped out. BAR and Button broke through big time in 2004. The BAR Honda package was the second strongest car over the season, with Button finally taking his maiden podium finish in Malaysia, then bagging a first pole position at Imola. Button took 10 podium finishes on his way to 3rd in the championship, but the BAR never quite had the pace to win, given the pace of the Ferraris. But BAR failed to build on that form in 2005. It was caught out by some of the subtleties of the new aerodynamic regulations and produced a car that was inefficient aerodynamically at high speed, not to mention hard on tyres. Combined with poor reliability, this led to a bad start to the season, compounded when Button was disqualified from 3rd place at Imola for BAR running an illegal fuel tank. BAR was then banned for 2 more races as a result of the offence. The first half of the season was therefore a write-off, with Button not scoring a single point in the opening 9 races. But in the second half of the season he was a consistent scorer and twice finished on the podium to salvage something from a frustrating season. The 2006 season again started with what was now named the Honda team struggling to consistently convert pace into results. Button took pole position in Melbourne, but retired from 5th place just before the line when he suffered an engine failure. The team's struggles led to technical upheaval, but Button took a sensational first Grand Prix win in Hungary despite starting 14th after suffering a 10-place grid penalty for an engine change. From that point to the end of the season, Button scored more points than anyone. But this win was a false dawn. The next 2 years with Honda were a disaster. The infamous Earth car of 2007 suffered from serious aerodynamic problems, and its successor was no better. So great were the team's troubles that at Spa that year it even took an aero upgrade from sister team Super Aguri in an attempt to improve its car. Given the machinery, it was no surprise Button managed only 4 points during those 2 seasons in cars that were difficult to drive, but hopes were still high for a revival in 2009 under the leadership of Ross Brawn, when Honda unexpectedly pulled the plug in early December. Button's future was in serious doubt. After a difficult winter, the team was famously revived as Brawn, and Button made a stunning start to the season, winning 6 of the first 7 races, including that famous win from pole position at Monaco to take command of the World Championship. With Brawn lacking in development budget, the rest of the season was a struggle, and there were times when Button appeared not to be dealing with the pressure of a title fight so well. He finished on the podium only twice in the final 11 races of 2009, but even so, he came through it to clinch a famous title with a race to spare by finishing 5th in the Brazilian Grand Prix. Button was offered the chance to stay at the team for its rebirth as Mercedes in 2010, but decided to make a surprise move to McLaren. Many questioned whether he'd have what it took to live with new teammate Lewis Hamilton, but Button's McLaren career started superbly. A perfectly timed switch to slicks earned him victory second time out in Australia, despite a brief trip through the gravel on his outlap, before holding off a charging Lewis Hamilton in China to make it 2 wins in 4 starts. He was in the title hunt for much of the season, but was eliminated from contention with a race to spare and finished 5th in the championship. The 2011 season was even better, arguably Button's best in Formula 1, on his way to 2nd in the World Championship. He beat Hamilton in the standings and won 3 races, including a victory he regards as his best at Suzuka after jumping ahead of Sebastian Vettel. He also won in Hungary after overruling a call to take wet tyres as the rain came down, but it was his Canadian victory that is most famous, charging from last to take the lead from Vettel on the final lap despite earlier collisions with Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. Button's great form continued in 2012, winning the Australian season opener and adding a dominant victory at Spa, and then with superb pace on slicks in the wet at Interlagos. The McLaren Mercedes MP427 was a quick car, but reliability and operational problems meant it fell short of challenging for the championship. Unfortunately, this was the last time Button had the chance to drive an F1 car capable of winning, meaning he never added to his 15 victories. The 2013 McLaren was an all-new concept, but one that suffered from underfloor aero stalling when running at the intended ride height. So great were the team's problems that reverting to the 2012 car was even considered, but the team plugged on with the MP428. It didn't take a single podium finish, and there were times when Button struggled with the car's inconsistency and didn't get the best from it. But he was a regular point scorer, and there were some strong drives along the way. Unfortunately, when he did perform well, the results, 4th after a great drive at Interlagos, 5th in China, 6th in Germany and Monaco, 7th in Hungary with the standout drives, weren't anything to write home about. It was a similar story in 2014. A return to the podium with 3rd place in the season-opening Australian Grand Prix was as good as it got. Although Button outperformed rookie teammate Kevin Magnussen, the team did have some question marks over his overall commitment, and with Fernando Alonso signed up to return, it was unclear until December whether he would be kept on. But after some strong late-season performances, with a late run of 4th and 5th place finishes and strong drives at Suzuka and Interlagos in particular, he was re-signed. McLaren's struggles with Honda meant that Button's final 2 full seasons in Formula 1 were very disappointing, although he stacked up well compared to Alonso and picked up regular points finishes along the way. But Button admitted that the lustre of Formula 1 had faded since the loss of Father John, the key influence in his career, at the start of 2014. He decided to sit out the 2017 season, although remained on McLaren's books as reserve driver. That led to one last unexpected outing in 2017, filling in for Fernando Alonso at the Monaco Grand Prix thanks to the Spaniard racing in the Indianapolis 500. With no prior experience of the car, Button did a remarkable job to take 9th in qualifying. Unfortunately, engine change penalties meant he started 20th, which condemned him to a day in the lower reaches of the field. His final Grand Prix came to a messy end when he hit Pascal Wehrlein while trying to pass him at Portier, the Sauber ending up on its side against the barrier. After 306 starts, 15 victories and 8 pole positions, Button's remarkable F1 career was over. What's your opinion on Jenson Button's F1 career? Did he make the most of his opportunities, or should he have won more than one World Championship? Let us know in the comments below.